Welcome, friends and fellow horse fiends. You've landed on Come Ride With Me, a podcast dedicated to helping you find harmony, joy, and success in your riding. I'm your host, Anna Fox of Equus Enlightened. This pod isn't about training your horse, but about training you to be the best partner for your horse. Listen to find out how I use my intention to direct my ride. You'll hear how I decide what to focus on, what to say yes to, and when to redirect my horse. You'll see how not getting frustrated or overwhelmed is the easiest path to sanity and harmony. So, what are you waiting for? Come ride with me. Hey friends, this week's podcast may go into the books as biggest bloopers of new podcasters, but we're going to see if we can work with it. Somehow, during my ride, or as I was getting ready, after I checked to make sure that I had turned my microphone on, I had to reposition it, and the button's right on the top, so I must have pushed it and turned the microphone back off. So, I'm going to try to narrate for you guys and see how that goes. So for those of you who are just listening to the podcast, you'll have really good audio quality this time without any breathing or horse sounds or outside sounds. But for those of you that are watching the video, it may seem a little different. And I wanted to let you know why. I am riding the wonderful Namaste. We are going to demonstrate how to use your intention and some really defined phases of the aids to get a freely forward thinking horse. This is great for anybody looking to refine your aids, or if you've got a horse that's maybe a little bit of an energy conservationist, aka lazy. But most horses in general are energy conservationists. They should be. That's how nature intended them. They're eating, they're conserving all this energy for the moments when they need to flee. The smart horses are energy conservationists usually, and we need to find a way to make them motivated. And one of the things that motivates horses is play. I like to feel like I can make this a game of, can you go? Or, don't make me. Get a little more animated. That makes it a little more fun for the horse, but the rider too. Rather than, kick, use the stick, use your spur, keep your leg on, push, push, push. Really, your horse should be able, and your horse is capable of maintaining the level of energy that you request until you tell them to change it. Now, you have to teach them what your intention is there, and you also have to sometimes give them the confidence that, hey, they can do this, but it's totally possible for your horse to be responsible for regulating himself in the gates and following your intention as to it's a little bit of a warm fall day here in Virginia, and the flies are out, so you could see Nami stomping right there at them. But we are going to get going, and you're going to see me working a little bit on his straightness. I'm going to be really particular about his left shoulder. He likes to lean on that, especially going to the left. So I'm really particular about even over-exaggerating the correction there and saying, hey, get off that left shoulder. Start carrying yourself straight. When horses are carrying themselves straight, the energy is then able to travel up over their back, straight out the front end, back into the hind end. We have this great circuit of energy that we can connect. When they're crooked, that's a lot harder. So right here again, I'm just redirecting that shoulder, and I'm like, come on, dude, you can get off it. And I'm doing this on a loose rein. One, because this horse will get a little bit behind if you are too much in his mouth. And so we're going to start out on a really loose rein, and he immediately goes to, I can throw my head down and then I'm going to throw it back up. And that's part of his balance and straightness issues. So we're going to work on that a little bit. I'm going to work on that. Yeah, get off the left shoulder there, buddy. And kind of what I'm doing is I'm creating the opposite position that he wants to be in. So when he's like, oh, I'm going to throw that shoulder over, I'm like, oh, let's throw it back over here. And we kind of come back to the middle. And this is where you see him stretch. Because now, he's like, oh yeah, if I'm straight, I can do that. Oh, but I leaned on my shoulder again. So now, push him back over, and then he comes back into the center. And the key really here is to just be patient, be very rewarding and very happy when they come back to the center and they find that sweet spot. And this is also a great way to just critique your own writing, to get yourself a Pivo. That's what I'm recording with, and my iPhone, and you can see what's happening. And as we go along with these podcasts, we'll see some of these horses develop, which will be really fun. And we can see the changes in them. But that's why it's great for you to video yourself. And if you don't have a Pivo or something like that, you can, even have a non-horsey friend or parent, husband, spouse, whatever, do a little shooting for you. And again, we're still playing with the shoulder. We're still playing with a little straightness here. I want to do that before I really get into, there he goes, really get into asking him to go too forward, because I want to keep it simple in the beginning, right? I want to be able to concentrate on one thing at a time. And then we can start to combine things. But while I'm teaching a horse something, I want it to be the only thing that I'm working on in that moment. And I know that this horse is really committed to this left shoulder thing. And he is under the care of a vet and osteopath. He has some Masterson method work done on him. So we know that he has some muscle imbalances and some issues that we're working on. That way, we're also trying to help him under saddle and on the ground with groundwork. But I know that this is something in the beginning with him that we need to usually address. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to address it. And then we can see how he's really feeling about going forward and moving off the aids. So I just continue to play around, give him the space to figure out where is the right place, where is he comfortable, and then reinforce that he can maintain that position on his own. Because if I am holding him in, say, a left bend, then I'm always going to be stuck holding him there. And he needs to learn how to be straight and balanced on his own without my help. And you'll see him finding different places. He goes all the way down and then he comes up and then he kind of finds the middle. That's totally normal. That's him finding his own balance and then me reinforcing that he can maintain it on his own. And there's times like right there that I will walk and fix the problem. Right? If I feel like I can't get a good response from him, again, there, I asked him to come off the shoulder and he's a little bit distracted, something over to his right. So he's like, I don't think I want to do that. So I slow it down, reinforce what I'm asking, then we're going to go back to trot. He's giving me a little grief, tossing his head because he's thinking, I don't know if I really want to do this. It's a little bit hard. So I'm just going to be persistent with it. Actually looking at something over to his left, it's helping me. So I'm using that, and it might get harder as I make a left turn on my circle. But look, he comes into the middle there and he finds a nice place to be. So then I reward that. So sometimes you use like if your horse is looking at something, or if they're fresh on a day and you want to work on energy that day, right? Perfect time there. Yeah. And now he's being more responsive to my left side aids and getting off of that left shoulder. And that's a perfect example I talked of in the last riding episode, and a little bit in the bonus episode. We talked about riding off one side of the horse, just riding the inside. And that's an example of doing that. I'm not trying to get him into my outside rein. I'm just simply saying, hey, you need to find your balance here. It's a work in progress, but it's coming, and it's very much improved as to how it started. And the flies are a little weird and irritating today because it's a warm day towards the end of October and it's not normal. So now we're going to switch to the right, and you're going to see that right off the bat, he is straighter going to the right. And one of my things that I see when I watch myself on video, and I know that I do this, but watching myself is helpful because I have short legs. I'm only 4'11", so I have short legs, and so allowing them to drop down and not bringing my heels up to try and get impulsion, get forwardness out of horses is hard for me, but it's also important that I remember to do that. And the other thing is not constantly using the leg, or as one of my friends just said to me, you're niggling, right? Niggling the leg. And I know we all have that tendency a lot of times because we've been told by trainers to push, keep your leg on, and not let the horses get behind our leg. Well, that sort of creates this constant effect, this niggling of the leg. And we don't want to do that. Now we're going to just work on my intention to go forward and the phases of my aids. You don't have to use these phases, but I would encourage you to have phases that you are consistent, diligent, and confident about. I like to have 4 phases of my aids. Well, really 5, because I always want to have like a phase 0.5, and that's my intention, and that's really when I want my horses to at least start thinking. If they're not already doing something, I want them to start thinking that something is coming. So, that's sort of my thought. And then the next thing is sit up, smile, and have the, with your intention, go forward. In that moment, your body already starts to do the things that it needs to do to ease your horse forward. Then my next phase would be closing my leg, right? A little squeeze, wrap your leg around. Then if I don't get anything, you see the kick. And it's not a big kick. It's not what I would call a pony club kick. It's more just the lower part of my legs and my feet kind of flop. Come on. And you see him move off from that. From there, if I don't get a response, I would then go to my stick. And so those would be my 4 phases. Or 5 phases, let me say. The intention, the sit up and go, closing the leg, a little kick, 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 and then the stick, stick, stick. After he goes, I don't ask him to maintain it for long. I just get the forward, and then we come back and rest. So this next time, I'm going to take out my phase 3, and I'm going to go intention, phase 1, 2, stick, 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 and he gives me a little head toss, head toss, head toss to let me know that he doesn't approve, but he does move off, and a little more peppy than he did before. So that's cool. We're going to stop and reward him for that. By having those 4 phases, and they are consistent, I do use those. I start with those with every horse. My phase 4, that may change based on the horse and what their responsiveness is to something. Some horses are offended by the stick. Some horses are dull to it. Some horses are better with a spur because they've not been dulled to it. There's a lot of consideration that goes into what my phase 4 is. So now we change direction to go to the right, and you notice already he's a little bit more forward and more willing. That's because he's straighter in this direction, and therefore it's easier for him to go forward. So you'll notice that he does give me a little head toss when he starts to go, and that's part of his old habit of not wanting to go and then being held down by the bridle. So I just allow that right now. That will smooth out as he gets used to going forward. Then I want to check and see how is his stop. Because a lot of times when you have a horse that is sticky to go forward, they're also sticky to stop. And it kind of sounds backwards. But a lot of times once you get them going, if they're a bit of an energy conservationist, then they don't want to stop all that promptly. So I use phases for my downward aids too. I use an exhale as my first phase beyond my intention, an exhale, and then I sort of sink deeper into the saddle, close the tops of my legs. If I need to use the rein, I do. And the other thing that I could do is use the stick up in front of the shoulder, like in the chest area. That is a great way to encourage a horse that is maybe very defensive of their mouth. And I'll also use that cue to back up. So here, if you're watching the video, you can see that I am just asking him if he can step backwards. And backwards is also a forward thing. So I'm going through my phases again. I do it a little bit different in the backup where I sort of sit up and almost stick my butt out a little bit, position my legs behind the girth, and I really would like for the horses to start to go backwards off my intention and that rotation of my pelvis. But if they don't, I then add my legs and then the rein and then maybe the stick up in front to encourage him to go backward. And again, he knows this game, so he's pretty quick at catching up with what I'm doing. And we're going to try it again and see, can you go backwards with my intention? And I'm really holding this phase for a long time because this is where I would like him to start to go. So if he doesn't go there, or if he tries something like stepping off to the side, I just keep my intention and then maybe add my next phase in to reinforce, no, what I really want you to do is go backwards. And I like to do things 3 times, especially if the horses are just learning. I want to go 1, 2, 3 and see if I get a better response. And then I'll go and do something else. If they don't seem to be bothered by it, I may do it another time or 2 just to see, do we get better as we go? But if they start to get bothered by the exercise or the game, then I'm going to back off and go do something else. is pretty good at this game, so he knows it's not a negative thing, but he's still not sure that he wants to move off of my intention. So we're going to play with that a little bit. And now that I've asked him to go backwards several times, now I have to reframe it and say, oh, but could you go forward again? And this is a little tricky for him because of his past. So there he gives me a little attitude about it, about tapping him with the stick. And again, it's not hard. You could barely even see me use it, but it was enough for him to be like, I don't understand what's happening. And that's okay, right? I don't get upset about that. He just doesn't understand. So we just try again. And he's like, oh, forward, backward, I don't know. And this is where it's really important to just be clear with your phases and the aids that you want to use. That's why I want you to be clear. Pick them and stick with them and be clear. Because when you start trying all kinds of things to get them to go or get them to do something, it starts to muddy the waters and then they don't know exactly what you want. So just be really clear, stick with it, keep your intention. They will learn. They will figure it out. Horses are smart. They're capable. So we need to have more trust in them and allow them to learn things rather than always be compensating for things that we think that they can't learn, which ends up making more work for us. And riding should be easy. It shouldn't be work, right? It should be easy and it should be fun. So if you're not having an easy time and it's not fun, reevaluate how you're doing it. Because we all got into this for the love of the horse. I give him a little break and then we go again and ask him to go forward again. And he's more on point. He's still giving me the little nose, like, ugh, really? Did you have to tap me with a stick? And then I go, well, can we go trotting? And yeah, we can. And he wants to be nice and stretchy, sometimes a little bit too much. But that, again, at this stage in his life, I think that it's him trying to figure out his balance point. And when I asked him to stop there, he did, and he did it pretty easily. So I'm not worried that, he's using his balance to sort of run forward. And there he went forward really easily, and he came back really easily. So I didn't have to do much, right? I just had to think trot, think walk, and away he goes. And that is my goal. And even if he's still getting his head up some in the transitions, again, right now, I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on the quality of the go button. And then that other stuff will work itself out. Many times you can let things work themselves out instead of trying to fix everything. If you keep it simple, focus on one thing, other things start to work themselves out. And it's easier. Then, really, really nice transition. And his head didn't go up. None of that. So that we really want to reward and give him a big pat and some praise for that. Good boy. And now he's just ready to go. Now he says, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. And that's lovely, right? That's what you want. You want a horse that's freely forward. And it didn't take very long to create freely forward. And then here, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to see, can we go forward, right to trot, and maybe be a little bit more purposeful in our trot. So again, I'm leaving out phases, or I'm quicker to get through them. So I went from phase 1 to phase 3 pretty quickly, and Then when I asked him again, he decided to go ahead and canter, so I'm going to let him do that. Because I don't want to dissuade him from going forward, right? That's what I asked him to do. And it was a decent canter. He got a little bit long and kind of rolling there at the end, so I brought him back to a trot. But again, he's trying to figure out his balance. He's trying to figure out the self-carriage thing because he's not done it much. And now that we've got the trot, we're going to see if we can have some nice canter transitions. Same process. I go through the same phases, and he does a really good job. And he also comes back really nicely. So I'm definitely going to give him a break there and let him stop. Tell him that he's such a good boy, and make that our simple lesson for the day. Thanks for listening, guys. And don't forget to rate and review the podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps people find the show. Thanks, and happy writing. If you'd like to learn more about what I do at Equus Enlightened, you can find me at equisenlightened.net or on patreon.com/Equus Enlightened. You can also find me on social media as Equus Enlightened. I will put all the links in the show notes. My goal is to demonstrate to riders that we don't have to do something every second of a ride. We don't have to do things a certain way or at a certain time. Just staying present with your horse and gathering non-judgmental information about how they are going is way more beneficial than overthinking and overworking.